During the day, the enemy launched a missile strike on the south of Odessa region. A transportation infrastructure facility came under attack. According to preliminary information from the regional military administration, 3 people were injured, 2 of them children. Explosions were also heard in Mykolaiv and Dnipro. There were no casualties there. In the morning, Russian terrorists took the lives of a man and a woman in Kherson. 2 more local residents were wounded. The occupiers also killed a resident of Novodmitrivka. Meanwhile, the number of wounded in the region from the previous day has risen to 16. Among them are 2 children aged 9 and 16. The occupiers killed 1 civilian and wounded 5 others in Donetsk region. 3 guided aerial bombs were dropped on the private sector of Sloviansk. 60 houses were destroyed. A man died under the rubble and 2 more were wounded. The Russians shelled Kostiantynivka with artillery, and in Dobropilya and Oleksievo-Drushkivka, enemy FPV drones attacked civilian cars. In the Kharkiv region, 1 person was killed and 6 were wounded. Among them is a 7-year-old girl. In Chuhuiv, an enemy drone struck a residential area, injuring a child and 2 adults. And in Kharkiv, an unknown object exploded near an apartment entrance. A man died at the scene and his wife was hospitalized. A man was also injured in Bliznyuki during an attack on the railway, 1 killed and 1 injured in the Sami region. The Russians struck the Esmen community with multiple rocket launchers. A 48-year-old man came under fire while fetching water. He died at the scene. And in the suburbs of Sumy, in the village of Verkhny Pishchan, the occupiers attacked a car with a drone. The driver was injured. Another Russian terrorist attack against civilians in Mykolaiv. There, a passenger train car was hit. Eyewitnesses shared footage from the scene. According to railway workers, the monitoring team noticed the enemy drone in the air in time, and people were evacuated. However, 1 man, a train inspector, sustained minor shrapnel wounds. The man is currently in the hospital. Since the beginning of March, this is already the 18th Russian attack on railway infrastructure. During this time, they have managed to damage more than 40 facilities. Ukrzaliznytsia says that the Russians have intensified their attacks, and among their main targets is rolling stock, locomotives, freight cars, and specialized equipment used for infrastructure repairs are also under attack.
In the area of Kryvyi Rih and Dnipro, this is 1 line of attack. In the south, Mykolaiv in particular, today's attack is the 2nd one, but Poltava region was also hit yesterday. In particular, the depot, the suburban depot in Poltava, was also attacked yesterday. In Mykolaiv as well, today there was a strike on a passenger train set without passengers and with the passenger crew evacuated. In fact, the train was being serviced at the time.
The Russians lost at least 3 warships, accompanied by spectacular special effects. Our sources in the special services told TSN about the results of the successful attack on the enemy port of Novorossiysk. In particular, on the night of March 2nd, the Security Service of Ukraine, together with the defense forces, struck the minesweeper Valentin Pikul. The anti-submarine ships Yesk and Kasimov were also seriously damaged. A massive fire raged at the enemy harbor all night, with local residents sharing vivid footage of the blaze and complaining about the activity of unidentified drones. It is known that as a result of the attack, a missile guidance radar and 6 out of 7 oil loading stands at the Shiskaris terminal were also hit. Unknown drones attacked and seriously damaged a Russian-sanctioned gas tanker in the Mediterranean Sea. Serhiy Sternenko published footage of the aftermath online. The photos clearly show that the vessel has a serious breach in the area of the engine room. And as the advisor to the Minister of Defense himself wrote, it is beyond repair. A massive fire on the Russian ship was recorded the day before. It is known that the tanker was transporting liquefied gas and is part of Russia's shadow fleet and is under American and European sanctions. The Russian Ministry of Transport confirmed the drone attack and claimed that the assault was allegedly carried out from the coast of Libya by Ukrainian unmanned boats. The Russians also called this attack an act of international terrorism and maritime piracy, and added that all 30 crew members who are Russian citizens were rescued. An Iranian boat destroyed in the Indian Ocean and a missile launched at Turkey, the 5th day of the conflict in the Middle East. The Israel Defense Forces announced on X the start of a large wave of strikes against Iran to continue shelling everything that can attack us. This will also be the focus of the United States forces. In 100 hours of the operation, the U.S. Army managed to strike 2,000 Iranian targets, according to the Ministry of Defense. This made it possible to weaken Iran's air defenses and destroy hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. It is known that 50,000 American troops, 200 fighter jets, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers were involved in the operation. In addition to air defense systems, the Pentagon reported that they managed to destroy 17 Iranian ships, including a submarine. And the head of the department boasted about striking a military vessel even in the neutral waters of the Indian Ocean. Tehran, in turn, continues to shell Israel and the countries of the Persian Gulf, targeting American military bases, diplomatic missions, and infrastructure facilities. During the day, Tehran launched a missile at Turkey. It was intercepted by Turkish air defense. NATO condemned this escalation. During the hostilities in the Middle East, about 900 people have already been killed. This is according to data from the New York Times. Among them are Iranian officials and military personnel. According to the Red Crescent, 787 of them have been killed. Tehran also reports the deaths of nearly 200 civilians. According to official information, 6 American soldiers have been killed. There are also casualties among Israeli citizens. Kuwait, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates have also reported casualties. At the same time, Iran has chosen a new supreme leader. He is Mojtaba, the son of the slain Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has replaced him. And the media are reporting some interesting details about him. Officially, Tehran is not announcing the appointment in order not to make Mojtaba a target for American and Israeli military forces. However, Iranian opposition media claim that power has indeed been transferred to him. The son of Ayatollah Khamenei has long been a very influential figure in the country, even though he has not held any official high-ranking positions. He has a religious education and close ties with the military leadership. Mojtaba is married and has 3 children. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that Mojtaba runs a vast investment empire and has access to considerable wealth, Swiss bank accounts, and elite British real estate worth over $100 million. And the day before, at the White House, Trump hosted the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. He supported the American operation in Iran, but noted that it is also necessary to discuss the issue of the war in Ukraine and to end it in such a way that Ukraine retains its territory and its security interests are upheld. To this, the American president criticized his predecessor for giving too many weapons to Ukraine. TSN's own correspondent in the USA, Olha Koshelenko, continues the story.
Donald Trump's relations with European leaders deteriorated after the unsuccessful attempt by the US president to justify the need to seize Greenland. At the Davos Forum in January, he did not hide his dissatisfaction with them, but on Tuesday he accepted the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in the Oval Office. He called him his friend and joked around. Now, the defining criterion in their relationship is the Europeans' attitude toward the US-Israeli operation in Iran. Merz supported the actions of the US and stated that he expects regime change in Tehran. But Spain refused to provide its military bases to the United States for the execution of this epic fury. As a result, Trump became angry with Madrid and ordered Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to halt all trade with the Spanish. He was also dissatisfied with the United Kingdom's contribution, but in this case limited himself to verbal criticism. He did not threaten a trade embargo. Overall, Trump claims that the operation in Iran is going splendidly. The country's military might has been destroyed, and Tehran's chaotic shelling of neighboring countries has only turned them against the regime.
The number of their missiles is rapidly decreasing. Amazingly, they're striking countries that were, let's call them neutral, aren't they? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. Now all these countries are fighting against them, and they're fighting like hell.
Friedrich Merz immediately stated there is a need to discuss both the war in Ukraine and even indirectly called Putin a villain.
We need to talk about Ukraine. In fact, there are too many bad guys in this world. And this is an issue we need to discuss because we all want this war to end as soon as possible. But Ukraine must preserve its territory and security interests.
Trump ignored this remark, as well as the German journalist's question about what consequences the war in the Middle East would have for Ukraine. After all, the consumption of weapons, especially air defense missiles in the area of Israel and the Persian Gulf, is currently extremely high. The topic of weapons for Ukraine interests the US president from a different angle. He complains about his predecessor Joe Biden, saying that he gave Ukraine for free what others could have bought.
We have a huge amount of high-quality ammunition. Many of them were handed out foolishly for free. I'm completely for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I provide ammunition, everyone pays for it. The European Union pays for it, and they can do whatever they want with it. They give it away, for example, to Ukraine, and that's fine.
The question of where the war in Ukraine currently stands among the priorities of the US president was raised once again. The answer: it is important.
There is intense hatred, terrible hatred, between President Putin and President Zelensky. I've seen a lot of hatred in my life, but I think this is on the highest level. I believe it will happen. Sometimes I blame one side, sometimes the other. I think it will happen, but it ranks high on my list of priorities, not because it has a strong impact on the United States. They are very far away.
The war in the Middle East has been going on for 5 days, and according to earlier forecasts voiced by the US president, it will continue for another 4 or 5 weeks. Donald Trump claims he has enough ammunition, but Volodymyr Zelensky has already voiced concerns. A prolonged war in the Persian Gulf will affect the number of air defense systems Ukraine receives. From Washington, United States, Olha Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
Russia is hiding the true cost of the war. The actual deficit of their budget has reached 8 trillion rubles, which is a third or 2 to 4 trillion more than officially stated. This is evidenced by data from German intelligence. They claim that at the beginning of the 5th year of the Russian-Ukrainian war, almost all sectors of the Russian economy are showing a decline. Such an impact in particular is caused by sanctions and the global drop in oil prices, which occurred before the start of the US and Israeli operation against Iran. For example, in December, the average price of Russian Urals crude oil dropped to almost below $40 per barrel. Now the price has risen, although the discounts offered by Russian companies have not been cancelled. A price fever at Ukrainian gas stations. Gasoline prices have soared by 3 hryvnias per liter. And that's just in 4 days of the Iranian conflict. Experts say the situation with oil is difficult to predict. Wholesale sales have been reduced, which is why our market reacted this way. Alexander Romanyuk looked into the issue.
People are filling up their cars and canisters, trying to do it as quickly as possible. Gasoline has gone up by 3 and in some places even 5 hryvnias per liter since the start of the US and Israeli military operation in Iran. And the price of fuel continues to rise. Experts explain there are 2 reasons for the sharp increase in price. The first reason is quite clear. It's a reaction to the surge in oil prices on the markets and the uncertainty caused by the war in the Middle East. The Persian Gulf lies between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. There, tankers are holding what is essentially a quarter of the world's oil production, now blocked. What will happen next is still unclear, so market participants are holding back their goods.
Everyone is wondering when this will end. Unfortunately, the forecasts are not encouraging. Fuel prices at gas stations will continue to rise. I can't name a limit because, well, it's simply impossible to do that right now. And secondly, there is no need to create additional panic and hype among the population right now.
But at the moment, it is precisely panic that is driving prices up, experts admit. Most operators had fuel reserves for at least 2 weeks, according to other estimates, almost a month. But due to the surge in demand, it is assumed that it will be sold out in less than a week, and the networks are taking advantage of this as well. Experts remind us such a price increase did not occur even at the beginning of the full-scale war. Back then, fuel mostly disappeared and later reappeared at a different price. Now, however, fuel is available. It's just not being sold cheaply. Currently, in Kyiv, you'll have to pay between 64 and 74 hryvnias per liter of A95. Diesel fuel has also become more expensive. Its price remains at the same level as gasoline, up to 74 hryvnias. Autogas has also gone up by 1 or 2 hryvnias. At the same time, in some places you can find fuel a few hryvnias cheaper. Prices vary. It all depends on the gas station and the region where they are located. Also, many networks have disabled the option to purchase fuel in advance through apps.
Well, the price increase is mostly a result of fear. The fear index has increased 1.5 times. This is an index that shows investor uncertainty.
In reality, there are no real reasons for such panic, says economist Andriy Dligak. Most countries have been preparing for force majeure situations and accumulating strategic reserves. In the USA, for example, they will open them if the price of oil reaches $80 per barrel.
If the price goes above $90, shale oil production is launched. So on Sunday, OPEC Plus gathered and made a decision to increase production. Production had been artificially reduced in recent years. There is a reserve capacity to increase by 2 million barrels per day.
China, which needs oil, is also putting pressure on Iran. It demands to ensure free passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Additionally, the US is moving its fleet there to protect the tankers.
Perhaps today, following the recent public statements made by Donald Trump, there is already a significant forecast appearing on the horizon suggesting that the market price may actually go down. This is truly a good signal.
But most experts are not willing to predict what price Ukrainians might see by the end of the week. Only drivers joke sadly, even if the panic subsides and global oil and gas prices plummet, Ukrainians definitely won't see such a sharp drop in gasoline or autogas prices. Alexander Romanyuk, Alexander Alefanov, TSN 1+1.
And what are the gasoline prices in your city? Share in the comments below this video and don't forget to leave a like. And I continue with the TSN broadcast. Three in a boat. In Vinnytsia region, men were caught trying to swim across the Dniester and persistently attempting to cross the border. Residents of Kyiv and Donetsk regions, aged between 26 and 42, first traveled to Vinnytsia. There, they rented accommodation and bought an inflatable boat. They took a taxi closer to the border, then continued on foot, after which they inflated the boat and set off down the river. However, their journey was quickly stopped by border guards on a patrol boat. The violators were detained and brought back to Ukrainian land to be held accountable. A new accomplice has been exposed in the case of the medics, a mother and son who were selling documents for obtaining disability status in Vinnytsia region. This is 26-year-old Ivan Kulchitsky. He was looking for clients of conscription age and was likely an intermediary between the doctors at the district hospital and the medical experts on the evaluation teams. Today, a preventive measure was chosen for him, detention or a bail of 1 million hryvnias. This is a significantly higher obligation than that imposed on the mother and son. Bail of 266,000 hryvnias has already been posted for the neurologist and the traumatologist. Let me remind you, they were selling a package of documents for $3,000 to obtain third-degree disability status. A portion of this amount was received by the intermediary. When the MSEC system was reformed into expert teams, the Ministry of Health explained that this would make fake disabilities impossible due to the anonymity of case distribution and electronic document management. So where did the system fail? TSN correspondent Irina Markovich continues.
Is that all?
The money is here.
Where?
Amidst the mess, in a village house, investigators are pulling out bundles of cash. This is the home of doctors. The mother is a neurologist, the son is a traumatologist. Mrs. Tetiana gets confused in the family accounting.
400,000 hryvnias and $57,000.
It took 3 investigators over an hour to lay out the bills. At first, they spread them out on the bed like a sheet, then they covered the carpets with them. In total, they counted $200,000 and 350,000 hryvnias. The amount of cash shown in these shots is comparable to the budget of the Litin district hospital, where the mother and son worked.
This is shock therapy.
Bondarchuk Tetiana Petrivna worked as a neurologist at this hospital for over 20 years. She was also a VLK doctor, as indicated on her office door. And if a patient chose her as their attending physician, she could provide services directly in the inpatient department. Her son, Andriy Bondarchuk, has a 1.5 years of experience working as a trauma doctor.
They bring him to school, to kindergarten, and now he has come to us as an adult, as a specialist.
The administration speaks of this family as good specialists.
They are professional workers, professionals. Absolutely, that's the case. A lot of patients turn to them.
But colleagues shy away from the camera.
Don't film me, for God's sake.
But off camera they say, the village is small, everyone knows everything about each other.
I promised the director I wouldn't throw her under the bus, but I won't lie either. This person got exactly what she deserved.
Bondarchuk Tetiana was detained at home. Andriy Bondarchuk was taken into custody at the hospital. The family business was selling disability certificates. A man of conscription age came specifically to the traumatologist with a diagnosis of osteoporosis. He conducted a series of fake examinations and then referred him to his mother.
She prepares the full package of documents and examinations for him and arranges inpatient treatment for a period of at least 10 days.
Then the mother prepares a set of documents for the expert team responsible for assessing the person's daily functioning.
A few days before the commission meeting, the doctor calls the patient and says that he needs to hand over a sum of $3,000. The patient gives the money to the doctor, who then is supposed to pass part of these funds to other individuals who are currently being identified by the pretrial investigation.
During the selection of the preventive measure, Tetiana Bondarchuk denies her involvement and explains the cash found at home as follows.
This is the money that the state paid my mother for a plowed hectare.
In the declaration of the 47-year-old doctor, it is stated that she receives a pension. In court, she confirmed that it was due to disability. Her son, a 27-year-old traumatologist, also receives a disability pension. Investigators suspect that this family business systematically sold disability certificates. During searches at the homes of the son and mother, numerous medical records were seized.
The year 25.
Fresh ones, right?
Yes, the year 25.
We seized a sufficient number of medical documents for other individuals, particularly males who are subject to military service.
Most likely, the mother and son had accomplices in the expert teams. This system was reformed a year ago. The MSX were considered the most corrupt institutions. Officials from the Ministry of Health assured that all safeguards against fake disabilities were taken into account in the new teams. When the MSECs were replaced by expert commissions, the main positive aspect of this reform was said to be the fact that cases would be distributed automatically. In other words, treating doctors would not know which team their patient would be assigned to. However, the case with the Lytton Hospital showed that even here the system failed. Now, the corruption risks have shifted to the level of the doctors who submit cases to the expert teams, because there are very few opportunities to check whether a diagnosis was fake or not during the review of the case by the experts. And if the treatment was fake and the documents were falsified, you wouldn't be able to find that out.
Unfortunately, no. The only thing is the team can later check the medical records, the presence of medical records in the e-health system, the electronic healthcare system. But as for the validity of these documents, well, indeed, the team is not protected from how truthful the documents are.
In the electronic system, every doctor leaves a digital trace. If there are suspicions, a specific case can be checked.
The electronic system makes it possible to see which doctor referred which patients to a given institution.
But this doesn't really scare doctors, because the amounts of bribes have increased compared to the MSECs. While we were filming this story, another group of medical workers was detained in Vinnytsia region. This group included a family doctor from a private clinic who referred clients for fictitious inpatient treatment, and her accomplice, the head of a city hospital department. The floor was covered with 1 million hryvnias and $200,000. For the second group, the accomplices charged almost $5,000. Irina Markevich, Andriy Romaniuk, TSN 1+1.
Already 11 countries and the European Union will boycott the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games in Italy, all because Russian and Belarusian athletes have been allowed to participate and permitted to use their flags and anthems. Just recently, Germany joined this protest. The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs thanked the country for this principled stance. According to Minister Sibiha, the Parade of Nations, which was supposed to be a ceremony promoting peace, is now turning into a show of war propaganda for Moscow and Minsk. The Games will begin on March 6th. Earlier, the National Paralympic Committee of Ukraine called on Italy to ban Russia and Belarus from using their flags and anthems at the competitions. The committee made this appeal to Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. The appeal states otherwise, by allowing this, Italy would in effect be recognizing the occupation of Ukrainian territory. Moreover, before the competitions, our athletes faced yet another set of restrictions. This time, Ukrainian Paralympians were forbidden to compete in uniforms that featured the outline of the map of Ukraine. The International Paralympic Committee called this ceremonial attire political and forced it to be changed. Therefore, our team will appear in different outfits. This is not neutrality. It is a choice that contradicts the very values of the Olympic movement. This is how the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs reacted to the IPC's decision, drawing attention to the fact that Ukraine was forbidden to display its borders, while Russians and Belarusians, on the contrary, were allowed to compete under their own flags. The opening ceremony of the 2026 Paralympics itself will begin on March 6th in Verona, Italy. Despite its boycott, the Ukrainian team is considered one of the favorites in the competition. For example, at the last Paralympic Games, our national team achieved a historic second place in the overall medal standings. This year, Ukraine will compete at the Paralympics with its largest team ever. Our country will be represented by 25 Paralympic athletes and 10 guide athletes. They will compete in para-biathlon, para-cross-country skiing, para-alpine skiing, and para-snowboarding.
It was Ukrainian Paralympians who, a few years ago, were the first to write "Glory to Ukraine" on their sports uniforms. So they removed that as well. Any slogans related to national representation are also being removed from the uniforms. Today, we are a country at war, and this team represents a country that is defending itself from a killer country and is protecting you, Europe, and the world.